Dear colleagues and friends, welcome to Prelude, an interview series about opera produced for educational purposes by Atelier. The current episode is supported by the dynamic online music platform Music Matters 2020 with Jason Tramm. Its founder, conductor Jason Tramm, joins today the panel of interviewers from the United States of America, joining the two sides of the Atlantic. Welcome, Jason. Today, we are very honored to be hosting one of the leading mezzo-sopranos of our times, Professor Michelle Breedt. Welcome, Ms. Breedt. Welcome to Prelude.
Thank you.
At this point, I would like also to welcome AD Creative Director, Mr. Sunny Boyd Ladla, and thank him especially for his help in realizing today's event. Hello, Sunny Boy. Sunny Boy, you are muted. We can't hear you.
Hello, sorry.
Hello, my dear.
Hello.
Hello. So, Michelle, we will call you Michelle because we feel that through your music we already know you and we love and respect you very much. So, with the first question, we will go back to South Africa, the place where you were born and grew up and started your singing journey. So I would like to ask, how did you find yourself from South Africa in Europe to start there your career, in Germany specifically?
Well, I was a young girl just singing, enjoying singing. Both my parents sing just as a hobby. And music was always in our house. And I was singing in the school choir. We had just moved to Pietermaritzburg, a new city. And it was the first day, and they called people who wanted to sing in the choir of the school. And I volunteered. I went in and we sang some song, and the teacher suddenly said, "Stop, who's that?" And a girl next to me pointed to me, and I thought, oh no, good heavens, what have I done? I've sung terribly, I'm going to be thrown out. And the teacher said, "Please come and see me in the break." And I was like, oh, what have I done? And then she started asking me a lot of questions and said, "Well, you will represent the school at this year's Eisteddfod." And that's where, in that moment, the birth took place of me as a singer. I had never ever known my own potential. And this lady had studied at the University of Stellenbosch, where I later studied myself. And she recognized something in me. And she awoke this dormant creature inside of me. And from then on, it was just music, 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 music. I was 3 years before ending my schooling. And I started to take music theory lessons, did everything I could, because I was absolutely, I had put my mind on it. I was going to study music. And I landed up at the University of Stellenbosch, which is down near Cape Town, a beautiful, beautiful city. And I went to one of the most famous teachers in the country, Professor Nelly, we'll say Dutoit for all the international people. And she was the lady that gave me all the tools I needed to sing. She was absolutely amazing. I know Sunny Boy knows her or knew her. I have seldom met anybody else or heard anybody else with such amazing ears and such amazing knowledge of singing. And I was so, so fortunate in my life that she was my first and basically almost only teacher. I still have worked with some other people. We can discuss that later. But since I went to university, I remember standing in my first year and somebody said, "So, you're here to study music. What's your aim?" And I said, "Well, I'm going to go overseas to sing." I mean, I was so innocent. I was so naive. I knew nothing of nothing. And looking back, I can almost just laugh. But somehow this desire to sing just grew and grew and grew. And the only way I could get overseas was to sing competitions. Because the South African rand, which is our currency, was so poor against all the world currencies. I needed bags of money to be able to go overseas. And I sang every competition possible. And I remember there was a conductor, Omri Hadari, from Israel, who worked at the Guildhall School of Music in London, and he was conducting the prize winners concert in Cape Town with the Cape Town Symphony Orchestra, and I was the prize winner, so I got to sing. And he said to me during the rehearsals, what are you still doing here? And I didn't quite understand what he meant. And he said, you must get out of the country. What are you doing here? There's no future here for you. And he then helped me actually to get into Guildhall, and I could leave the country with quite a substantial amount of money because, only because I had a study place that I could prove that I was going to study. Because in those days, you couldn't just take money out of the country. The amount of money that you took out of the country was limited, and it was stamped in your passport, what your foreign currency, how much you took out. So this limited you totally. There was this invisible chain that would yank you back to South Africa. It was towards the end of the apartheid period, and it was a very tumultuous time, and a very, very I'm thinking in German now, an absolute time that just brand marked into my soul and my mind, a very special time in South Africa to be able to help and fight for a liberation that was not there at all. So that's how I got out of South Africa. I landed up in Guildhall, studied a short while with Rudolf Pierney, because I was there, and everybody was saying to me, what are you doing here? You've got to go and sing. You must go and sing. I still thought I had to study a postgraduate in opera and all sorts of things. And somebody said, no, we're going to pay you out your money. You go back and go and audition in Europe. And that's how I landed up in Europe. And I landed up in the Cologne Opera Studio. And that's where my journey started.
Thank you very much, Michelle. I think the next question connects very well with the point that you left us in the first question. So, as a South African, you were required to have an artist visa in order to work in most of the countries. What was your experience with the immigration system, especially in the initial stage of your career in Germany? Were you allowed to go and sing everywhere?
No. I found this out the hard way, or with a shock. I had just gotten my first engagement as an ensemble singer, part of the ensemble in Braunschweig, which is close to Hanover, where Sunny Boy is busy singing, I believe. And the theater had gotten a call from the theater in Lübeck saying, our Hänsel in Hänsel and Gretel has gone ill, and we have our premiere tomorrow. Please, could your Hänsel come up and save the performance? And the theater said, yes, of course, off you go. And I went up there and basically walked out on stage from the taxi straight onto the stage. The orchestra was playing already. A correpetitor was standing in the corner trying to sing Hänsel. I walked out on stage and just picked up from where they were and sang. The next day, the man from the artistic bureau came to me with a very pale face and said, we have a great problem. And I was like, yes. And he said, well, actually, you're not allowed to be singing here. And I went, my theater gave me permission. I'm officially, I can sing for you. He said, no, in your passport, it's stamped that you can only sing in the city of Brunswick. We've had to go to the minister to get special permission to have you sing here today. So it was a quite an awakening for me, and I realized that I was in Germany and I was singing, but I was handcuffed. I could only sing in the city where I was, and I couldn't, like a lot of people, just jump in here, jump in there. I remember Salzburg called once for me to go and sing, and I couldn't because of this limitation. And then it was very difficult to get visas, because I needed a visa for the air I breathed, because South Africa was being sanctioned from all sorts of sides. And of course, a lot of people were extremely unfriendly towards me because I was a white South African. I remember an officer throwing my passport back at me, sort of at my chest like this in London, sort of saying, "Yeah, you stupid racist, get out of here." And really going through some terrible experiences. It was quite painful to go through these experiences. And I just gave up after a while, trying to explain to people that I wasn't what the outside of me was. And then later, I had to prove that I worked in Germany every year. I needed a contract from the theater to be able to go to the Bureau of Residency and prove that I had worked every year in Germany. And only after 5 years of uninterrupted work, I got a visa to stay in Germany. So my first years, I was totally caught up in Germany, in the city, but I learned a tremendous amount. That's where I learned a lot of my roles. I sang in the ensemble. I had a very good conductor, was our chief, Stefan Scholtes, was on a very high musical standard. Braunschweig is a small A house. And I really had the opportunity to sing things up and down and down and up, because I was the only mezzo in the ensemble. And I really had to do absolutely everything possible. And that's where I really learned a lot of my trade. And learned the German language. And so I was very thankful in a way before I then was allowed to spread my wings.
Thank you so much, Michelle, about that. I mean, I can relate so much to everything you're saying. So since we're talking about this, you just mentioned that you were in an ensemble and you've done so much. Do you believe and do you advise young singers to do go ahead? And this is just a small question before I ask the big question I want to ask. Do you believe and trust that and that young singers should go and join ensemble to learn repertoire? Because there's a lot of misconception that we don't like ensemble because we tend to be put in so many productions and all that, and so many young singers don't understand that going in an ensemble might help. What is your advice on that?
I can only speak from my experience. I found it to be the correct thing at the time. I had to learn so much about stagecraft, still learn from the professionals that were singing around me, guests that came in to watch them, to see how they paced themselves in big roles. And I mean, I had the opportunity of singing Cherubino like 60 times, over a period of time. And you realize you learn a role differently when you get to sing it more than once and get to sing it under all sorts of circumstances. You might not be feeling so well that day. Then you have to go out there and sing in any case. You might have been singing something totally different before the Mozart, say now a Hänsel, which has different feel in your voice, and then the next day you have to sing Cherubino, and you have to learn. And with all these circumstances, you have to learn to cope. So it's not just a question of learning roles, which is, of course, a huge factor, is going to learn your role. And if you get a theater that gives you good roles, that is worth a tremendous, tremendous amount, because you're going to learn your roles. You're going to have also the opportunity to sing that role in all sorts of circumstances, which if then you go and sing it on one of the world's big stages, is going to give you such a foundation, because almost nothing's going to be able to throw you, because you've lived through it all already. Yes. So that when you get to the big ones, you can totally relax and say, been there, done it. No, I know what can happen. I know what can't happen, and I'm fine. So I would have truly advised young singers before sort of going, I want to be this freelance artist. I don't want to be held down. I'm going to go and just make my debut in Wiener Staatsoper. I would advise against that until you've got a tremendous amount of experience, or you must really be super, 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 super. I think if you speak to most singers, everybody started out where they needed some experience.
Yeah, that's so true. Well, I would love to also touch a very big subject that you're very passionate about, types of mezzo-soprano voices. what is your opinion on the misconceptions that mezzo-sopranos can't sing high notes, or as I've been seeing around, you've experienced some singers switch from mezzo-soprano to soprano and vice versa. What is your take and your advice on that? Because we do work with young singers most of the time. Some of them, they just think that this is what they are, but really they don't know what they are. As a professor as well, what is your take on that?
Sure, this is big.
Yeah.
It sort of, the mezzo gets or has through the years. Lately, it's maybe a little bit different. I'll explain why. But through the years, the mezzo, especially in ensembles, you were sort of there. Like, look, when I went, my experience was I was the only mezzo, so I had to sing things that weren't maybe exactly suitable, or what I felt was sort of like really the juicy part of my voice at that moment. I had to sing something, and then like in let me see, Tchaikovsky. I can't think of it now. Sorry. Where it was so low, and I thought to myself, I'm groveling in my socks here. No, this is where I don't feel my voice is really at home. And you have to sort of sing everything. You have to sing everything from coloratura to all the Mozarts, to Rossini's, to everything. You just have to be sort of Mädchen für alles, like the Germans would say. That's not true. I feel very strongly that there are different mezzo-sopranos, just like there are different sopranos. You're not just going to engage one soprano for an opera house and expect that one soprano to sing absolutely everything. No, you'll have your high coloratura that's going to sing the Queen of the Nights, you know. Yeah. Then you're going to have your lyric soprano that sings the Paminas, and if you're going to cast a heavier Pamina, that will sing Mimi in La Bohème or something. And then you're going to have your soubrette, your very, very light soprano, you know, for all your operettas and despinas and whatever. But the poor mezzo lands up, can you do everything? And mezzos also somehow all expected to have this like very low voice. And I'm like, no, not really. Who says so? Listen to the name, mezzo-soprano. Mezzo-soprano. So I'm actually a type of soprano. Haha, here is the clue. I'm not a contralto. I'm a sort of soprano. And this you could hear in the Rienzi, where we started out. That's very, very high roll. A soprano can sing it. I mean, I'm singing high B flats and B naturals. And, you know, with the, you know, so to be a type of soprano. But what does this mean? Okay, mezzo. People also get confused as far as the timbre is concerned. They always expect mezzos to sound like Elena Obratsova, you know, big, heavy, dark voices. But that's not true. You know, you listen to somebody, let's see, Joyce Di Donato, a colleague now. Joyce has a very light timbre to her voice, very light. If I didn't know her and know her voice, and somebody brought her to me and said, okay, listen to this voice, and she was singing some, say, Mozart, and not all the coloratura stuff, I would say, oh, sounds like a nice soubrette, yeah. Because the color is so bright. It's a very bright, sunshiny type of timbre. You know, and then you might have somebody like a Teresa Berganza, which is also on the light side. And then you start getting different shades. Then you start getting an Agnes Balza, you know, and then you get going lower. Then you start really getting the big, heavy, darker mezzos that go into your heavier red wines, like your Obratsovas and things like this. Contraltos, the really low voices of the female voice, is one of the rarest things you can find. If you find a true contralto, like Podlesh, there's Eva Podlesh.
Eva Podlesh, yes.
Then you hear what a true contralto is. But a lot of people expect mezzo-sopranos to sound like that. for some strange idea that all mezzos have to sound like, like these big trucks. But it's not true. You get different types of mezzo-sopranos like you get sopranos. You get your coloratura mezzo-soprano, the one that sings all the Rossinis. That's absolutely ideal for that sort of repertoire. Then you'll get your typical Mozartian, Straussy type of mezzo that sings long lines and sort of type of rhythm, being a type of soprano.
Yeah.
And I feel that there's not sometimes enough definition as far as this goes. Fine tuning. I mean, if you look at all sorts of other voice types, you're going to get the gradation that's allowed. But the poor mezzo, you sort of just lump summed. Yeah. So what makes a mezzo-soprano a mezzo-soprano? It's the question. Not that we cannot sing high notes. Good heavens. We have to be able to, if you sing Adalgisa, you have to be able to sing a high C. And you sing, Norma will sing a phrase, and you will sing a second phrase with a different text, but exactly the same music, like I Capoletti Tecchi as well. You're singing exactly what the soprano sang. It's the color, the timbre, that might be darker than the sopranos. But you have to be able to sing high notes as well. Yeah. The difference is we don't like to stay up there all the time. It's the question of tessitura. Yeah. Not so much of the color of a voice. As I say, you have just as many different types of colors in a mezzo-soprano like you have in a soprano. The thing is, we like our tessitura, where the time where we sing the most in an aria, in the part of our voice where we sing the most in an aria, that is where the tessitura lies. And I was talking to Urmana once whilst I was in Bayreuth, and she'd come up from mezzo and she had changed to soprano. And we were playing golf, and I was saying to her, Violetta, but you say you trained as a mezzo-soprano, but I mean, I just heard her as Kundry and stuff like that, this whopping voice with these amazing high notes and things. And she said, yes, no, I'm singing soprano. I said, but how are you coping? How are you feeling? And she said, well, I just count how many high G's I have to sing. And, and I was, okay, all right. So you're saying a mezzo shouldn't be singing too many high G's in an evening. The centering of where the aria seems to be lower. And that, for me, is the big criteria. First of all, is where your voice is going to sit the most comfortable. You might have very, very high notes, and you might have very, very low notes as well. But the tessitura, that is the thing that's what. Because there were people that used to say to me, oh, come on, Michelle, you're just a lazy soprano. Go out there and sing, you're just a lazy soprano. But singing roles like Rienzi, like the Adriano in Rienzi, that really absolutely showed me, no. It was way too much hard work. Yeah. If I was a natural soprano, I would be staying up there, enjoying life up in the stratosphere. I enjoyed it every once and then, but I was so happy when I could. Yeah. So that for me is really the biggest thing whatsoever. Yeah. And this is with young singers, I tend to not want to classify their voices at all. Classification is something you can absolutely wait for, because you usually get an instrument that is still so young, and you have to first see where that instrument is going to go. If you're just going to classify, because somebody's got a very dark timbre, you're a mezzo. You might be totally wrong. It might be quite a dark sounding soprano. She might have high notes forever. And so I tend to be very, very careful in classifying voices just because of the timbre they have. Of course, your passaggi will tell you a little bit more as well, but also the fact of where the voice sounds comfortable. Does it sound comfortable singing a higher tessitura or a slightly lower tessitura? And I think that's very, very important. And you can wait with that. whilst you're studying. Absolutely wait with that. Sing repertoire that's within your range. Sing repertoire that's not going to, as I say, have too many of that where you're feeling you have to stand on tiptoes the whole time. You're not feeling comfortable. And this, your voice will show you as a young singer, your voice will show you as you exercise, as your voice grows while you're studying, your voice is going to show you where you're going to go and what you are. So first classifications, just by listening to a voice and sort of listening, I find very dangerous. So everybody that studies with me first for a long while is a female voice.
Awesome. That's just a beautiful answer. Maybe just to add on something small, Michelle, did you always, because my God, you made the German repertoire sound so easy. Did you always feel at home when you sang German than Italian? This is just a personal question. Because really, because also you've sung in Bayreuth so many years, so many times in the Wagner repertoire, and one wouldn't think that you will sing in Bayreuth for so long because you had light soprano for Norma, mezzo-soprano, sorry, for Norma. We will of course think of you, but Wagner, I was just like, oh my God, when I was listening to him, like Wagner and Strauss, I was like, she makes everything so easy. And for me, I always find German difficult, but what is it that you do to make that German with the line, with the legato as you do with Italian? How do you balance the two?
Well, the thing is not to try and think of it as being different from Italian. First of all, vowels are vowels.
Yeah.
You might have some particular to German, and you might have some particular to French, or some other languages might have different vowels, except the 5 big cardinal vowels, A, E, I, O, U of French. But the thing is to try to sing everything, all the vowels as clearly as possible. And also not just singing the vowels clearly, but maintaining an acoustic legato. And this means that the acoustic that you are putting out for one vowel has to have the same impact on an audience when the second vowel comes, when the next vowel comes. For example, if you're listening to the radio and something's really on the station, say, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, nice to have had you, you don't want any static. And this is what a lot of people don't realize. They sing a good note and the public go, oh, I hear the voice, lovely. And then all of a sudden, they're not very clear with their resonance shaping. And then it goes, because the resonance is not working. And then you might have another vowel where it's working. And so your audience is getting an interrupted signal the whole time. And this is what people don't realize. That is what legato actually is an uninterrupted acoustic signal. And of course, the things that interrupt us as singers are consonances. And the aim of the game is to learn to sing your consonances as quickly as possible, get them out of the way as quickly as possible so that the shortest amount of time is spent on them so that there's almost not a heard gap of sound from one vowel to another, so that the acoustics of one vowel sounds like the acoustics of the other one. You'll hear the consonant, but the consonants for me are like washing pegs, where the washing line is your breath, and the clothes you're hanging up is your vowel. So you hang up your clothes and you put on washing pegs. These are your consonances. Consonances ride on the air, just as the vowels do. But the consonants don't break the line, they ride with. But what do? Is they define the clothes. If I just take a pair of long pants and I put one washing clamp on it and I just let it hang, from a distance I won't necessarily be able to tell you that that's a long pants. But if I take 2 washing pegs and I hang it, it defines what I'm hanging. And consonances are there to define the vowels or the vowels so that we can understand words. Yeah. That thing which is so special to the singing voice, which no other instrument has, is the language. And this is where people have to learn to try and trick out the consonants. Somebody once said to me, well, there's the old actor's trick. And I said, no, what do you mean? This is before I went to Bayreuth to do my first Wagner role there in 2000 to do the Magdalena in the Meistersinger von Nuremberg. I said, well, you take a wine cork and you put it between your teeth and you talk against this wine cork. You speak and you let your tongue work very hard. And then you take away the cork and it's going to be so much easier. But please, one thing is very important. Do not drink the wine beforehand. Only drink the wine. You have to become very virtuosic with your consonants. But, Italian is also not that easy. You also have your double consonants, But, like battere, where the sound stops. But you have to know exactly how loud to sing that double T so that it's not going to be a hole and you're going to be able to have this continuous sound that goes. Yeah. And as I say, you have to find your primal vowel in a word. Mm-hmm. You have to stay on that primal vowel as long as you possibly can. And if it has a diphthong, the diphthong comes just at the end, before the next consonant or before the next vowel. Yeah. So it's choosing and being very clear about your vowels. What vowel is, if it's an A, wie Vater. I'm not going to say Vater, as a lot of people do. And when you try to talk too much, this is where you become like a Pac-Man and you chew things up and things don't sound legato. And that's when German can sound very as if you're chewing it. Mm. But it doesn't have to be that way. Absolutely doesn't have to be that way. So that's how I approach it in a nutshell.
Michelle, thank you so much for sharing your insights. So amazing. Thank you for the reverence with which you presented your teachers and your mentors who've inspired you along the way. As you've become that teacher and mentor, how have you successfully managed to combine an international singing career with your teaching?
Oh, yeah. Well, I've sort of taught my whole life along. There would always be colleagues that, even be in the ensemble, we'd start talking about technique and then somebody would say, yeah, you sing that piano there. How do you do with that? And I'll say, well, okay, fine. Let's, next time we're busy both practicing up there, just come into my room and then I'll show you. And then people from the chorus would start coming and saying, oh, I hear you teaching. Would you mind to teach me? And then some colleagues would come and say, I'm having problems there. Do you have any ideas how I can fix this? And so I have been teaching all the time. I only about in 2015, I think, 14, 15. Got called by the Hochschule, the university in Munich. They had a post going and asked me to come. And I went and presented myself. But I said to them, look, I've just come out of courtesy. I said, I can't really do this because I'm singing such a lot. And if I would teach, I would take my responsibility of teaching extremely seriously. How am I going to teach a class of 10 or 12 students when I'm away on a big production? How is this going to be possible? So I said, look, I as much as I find it amazing and wonderful that you've asked, and I would love to do it, I could only do a half, maybe if I'm well organized, maybe a half class. And that was it, and I left. And I thought, well, some weeks went by and I thought, well, yeah, it was obvious. I had told them no. I had said, basically, thank you, but no thank you. And then I got a letter saying, we would like to offer you half a post. And this was Wolfgang Brendel's post. Wolfgang then went to America. And he only had a half a post. You see, the full post was for a mezzo-soprano. They were looking for a mezzo-soprano. And the only way they could get me to come was for a half position. And then they said, well, to hell with it. She's not a baritone. It should actually be a baritone in his place, but we're just going to take it.
Well, that's fantastic. Who better than someone who's on the great stages of the world to inspire the next generation of artists? What do you enjoy the most about working with young singers?
Oh, man. I enjoy the fact that I learn from them. I'm constantly learning more from my students than anything else. I enjoy the inquisitive nature. I enjoy the moments of that's how it works. Okay, I've understood. Those are so precious because it's like the birth of something new. You're always there when something is being born for the first time. And it's such a privilege and it's such a beautiful process. You know, I mean, I know how this works, how that works. There are no surprises in a way, you know. But when the kids start learning and they start developing and growing, and to watch this process from the little plants that grow and grow and grow and grow, I'm just so privileged. It's a very humbling experience, and it's a very special experience to be part. And it's a tremendous, tremendous responsibility to take part in the forming of a talent, and not just the talent, because you land up having bigger conversations in a certain sense sometimes, and you also are helping somebody shape the way they're going to work one day, their work ethics. And this might start to affect other things as well. So it's a great, great privilege. And I absolutely adore working with young singers because, you know, if you work with pros, you know, sometimes they become very impatient because you still get to explain something and they're like, yeah, but when I lift my soft palate, and you're like, we're getting there. Just give me it. You know, they sort of jump out ahead of you because they, you know, they're more trained and they know where certain things are going. And I'm like, let's not run before we can crawl. It's the crawling part that you're not doing right. That's why you can't run. You have to crawl again, and then you might find your feet again. So that's, you know, the difference of working with pros. Sometimes they tend to get ahead of themselves, and because of their knowledge and things like that. But with students, it's this discovery process, learning new things, and with them coming with shiny eyes and saying, "Oh, I've just discovered how my passaggio works." I think
once that light bulb goes on, it's so exciting. I'm a teacher too. I just love that journey of discovery. And do you find that teaching makes you a better performer?
Well, it makes me a more aware performer. I don't know if a better performer, but I'm far more aware of what I'm doing, you know, because I hear my own voice saying to me now, be careful, you're coming up to the passaggio, keep it nice and slender, don't add up any weight here, or else I start hearing my voice in my ears like I'm telling my students to. It makes me more aware of things, absolutely. I'm very much aware of technically what I'm doing because it's something I'm working with directly. I hope it makes me a better performer. I hope so.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jason and Michelle. Since we are speaking for young singers, how can recent graduates jumpstart their career? Do you think that competitions would play a good role, for example, as you also tried yourself?
We're living in such a different time and age as to when I was a young singer, like 30 years ago. Today, you have to be present on all the social media. Now, I'm dating myself. You know, in my beginning, we didn't have cell phones. We didn't have, you know, everything you have today. There was no internet. You have to be present. You have to just bombard people with who you are. First of all, this seems to be the thing. You have to get your name out there. People have to recognize your face and your name. Put out some recordings of yourself. Make some good recordings of yourself. Just put it out there because people browse. And not just people. Those people are sometimes casting directors. Believe it or not, casting directors browse around in the internet. and they might just, happen upon your recording. And then if you don't have other information of yourself out there, like a web page or whatever, with information of how one could reach you, you might lose an opportunity. Competitions are special. Competitions are special things. Competitions aren't for everybody, I have found. It's a means to an end. I sang so many competitions because I was a poor student and I had no money, and the only way to get money was to sing competitions. It was a total means to an end, and I vowed the day I came to Europe I would never ever sing another competition, and I never did. No matter what, I never did. And competition has a certain personality, I think. You've got to be a type of personality that can switch it on like that and switch it off like that. You've got to be somebody that can absolutely perform in the moment and be on the spot in the moment. If you're somebody that sort of needs, a time to get into things, competitions might not necessarily be your thing, because you get a chance. And that chance in the beginning is your first round, where they do a lot of sieving out. That's where you've got to make your biggest impression. And you've got to be able to coordinate your stage personality, your charm, your charisma, if you have some. Hopefully, if you've been blessed to being born with charisma. I think charisma is something you're born with. I don't think it's something you can help it along, but it's not something you can really create if you don't have it. And be technically so secure that you can sing your aria in the middle of the night, standing on your head. If somebody wakes you up and says, sing this aria, and you'll just go on autopilot, auto drive, and sing it. But also with a chance of wanting to take risks in the moment. Being so secure, but also wanting to go for that something extra to sort of like swim free from the rest of people, to really throw your heart and soul into the thing. And that's not always possible for everybody to do. It's very difficult. It's not easy. It's a very difficult thing to do. And competitions are also, depends who the jury is. You can have the same singers and have two juries and you get two different results. Competitions are good if you can win them, because then you get the spin-off effect. I have a young singing now with Sunny Boy, a young student of mine who won the Vinyas competition. And I mean, the spin-offs have been amazing because she's won this huge competition with, with so many things that come with it. It's like an extra spotlight that suddenly just, in a mass of people, just lights you up, and that can give you connections to theaters, to agents, because agents come and listen. Intendants listen. Usually through the press, it will go through the press. So-and-so won this big competition, won the Belvedere, or won the Vinyas, or, whatever. And that, of course, gets you to swim free. But once you've swum free, that's not where it ends. You then have to really swim. And then you've got a certain pressure behind you, because you've got to prove that you're as good as you are to have won that competition. So immediately you're going to have a wave of pressure behind you to go out there and prove, I am as good because I won the competition, and I have to show that. And that's where you can get, there's some people that cope very well with that, and they just bloom, and they can really take it. And I've seen some people go under with that. Not everybody that wins a big competition makes a big career. That's what I'm trying to say. And there are lots of people that don't win competitions at all that make very big careers.
Yeah.
I'll never forget being a young student in South Africa, and it was the big UNISA competition, and Renee Fleming was singing in the competition, and I fell in love with her voice. I was like, oh, this lady has the most beautiful voice you could ever imagine. And she was in the lead section. She wasn't even in the opera section. And she didn't win, but look who she is now. So, you have to know the risks when you are going to do a competition. And you have to learn to not take the results too personally, both ways.
Yeah.
If you don't make it, that doesn't mean that you're a bad singer. Please, for heaven's sakes, no. It's maybe just that the jury say, no, preferred for the repertoire, you sang a darker voice or something, and that influenced them. It's not to say that you were a worse singer than the singer before or after you. And so it's, and also if you win the competition, don't think, oh, cool, I've arrived. Haha, I've conquered the world and I don't have to do anything else anymore. That's not true as well. So saddling up to go into a competition, you have to be very aware, I feel, of these various factors so that you can arrive on the other end with a heart and soul and ego intact and not feel like you've been picked on by the crows and been totally disseminated, and pulled apart, and you have to sort of like pick up the poor little me that's like a dot of blood on the floor, and try and get yourself going again because it was such a terrible experience. You have to know not to take competitions too seriously.
Without rejection in competition specifically, but since we spoke about this, how do we deal with rejection and critic in general? After auditions, competitions, how do we face the next day?
Okay. Something I tell my students is there are 3 things, and you have to memorize these 3 things, and it's going to be true for the rest of your life. It's going to be true for quite a lot of things in your life. And these 3 things is true for everybody. You're going to find people in life that are going to love your voice. Oh, they fall in love with your voice. They just think you are the best ever. There are going to be people who go, neither here nor there. Okay. And there are going to be people that don't like your voice. That's it. It's like there are people who will like you as a person, people who are apathetic towards you as a person, and people who don't like you as a person.
Yeah.
And this is also for the very famous singers. You can get a bunch of tenors together and you can say, one will go, oh, I love Pavarotti, and the other one will say, no, can't stand Pavarotti. Domingo is far better. So you see, we're talking about world famous people now, or actors, or, famous pop singers. These 3 factors is a fact of life. Get used to it. And the quicker you can get used to the fact that those 3 things are going to accompany you for the whole part of your life, the easier it is for you to feel more comfortable within yourself and to work with rejection. So if somebody rejects you, you go, okay, fine, that's your opinion, but I know there are people that like me. You might not like me, but so-and-so and so likes me. So the market is big. The market is very big, and you will find the person that's going to fall in love with your voice. So be patient and don't necessarily be trodden down by everything you hear. Now, of course, critics can really hurt one, especially when you're young and you've sung your first big role and you rush out to get all the morning newspapers. And the crits aren't as good, or might not even mention you might mention you in one word, the warm mezzo, or the honey sound of the tenor. They're just throwing in an adjective, and you've been singing like 5 hours on stage, and you go, okay, so I'm worth 1 adjective. But the rest of you, what you're talking about, the orchestra and the direction and everything fills your newspaper, but I'm worth 1 adjective. Things like that can hurt. And this is once again where you have to put things into perspective. There are really not that many people that really know about singing. People that are writing critics and things like that, they don't really know that much. I know a couple of very big name critics, and I know some of them personally over the years because I've had various interviews and things. And when I talk with them, I interview them afterwards. They get to interview me first, and then I put them on the spot afterwards. And when I've put them on the spot afterwards, gently but kindly, you realize how little they know actually. But they basically like the public sitting out there, hearing it, giving their personal opinion. Because if they had to really write, well, the tenor, navigated his passage, or the F there wonderfully. Or, the Count singing in Marriage of Figaro, the F sharp at the end was brilliant. The vowel color had a lot of squillo and everything. First of all, they don't know what all those things are. And secondly, your reader is not necessarily going to know what they're talking about. So they can't really go into a lot of detail. This is sort of trying to be nice to them. But they don't also really know that much about the voice. They are just judging what they're hearing. If they like it, they like it. If they don't, they don't. It's a personal opinion. And a lot of these people haven't studied arts or music at all. They usually are linguists because they write. That's their main. First of all, they are writers. They are linguists. They might have a passion for the arts, and they've maybe studied visual arts or something, but maybe not music, but they get to go and do all the critics because they land up in the arts department of the newspaper, and then they have to go and crit an opera. So put it into perspective, people. If your singing teacher comes to you and says, then I'd be very sad. And then I would know, oh, there's trouble. I did not do well. But then I can go and ask that person, okay, so tell me exactly what didn't work. And there you're going to get the right information to be able to help you. So be careful to whom you lend out your ears.
Thank you very much. That's so true. I'm just going to go to the next question. This I will ask you as a professor. In your own opinion, with the young singers, since you're working with them a lot lately, where and what do you think young singers make a mistake in terms of choosing the right repertoire that they should be singing at this point in time?
First of all, it's a question I think often they fall in love with the most wonderful music. They fall in love with the pieces. And usually the pieces we fall in love with are usually the big famous arias from big operas. So everybody's like, oh, I want to sing that. Oh, I want to sing. This is so beautiful. I want to sing Che Gelida Manina. and because, the melody, I get goosebumps all over. Oh, it's just so wonderful. Then they don't know their own capabilities as to what is needed in the aria. They tend to overshoot the mark very often as far as being able to judge where their capabilities are and what they physically can sing and master at a certain time. So you're always going to have to sort of rein them in, which is terrible because I always feel like a party pooper, sort of going, oh, sorry, I have to burst your bubble. I have to burst your bubble. No, sorry, you're not going to be singing that now. You're going to go to sing Caro mio ben. And then they sort of look at me and go, and I say, Caro mio ben. The day you can sing that as beautiful as Pavarotti when he was a famous singer, then we'll talk. You think Caro mio ben is easy? Now bring it and we'll see. But it might not be that sensational melody that everybody's sort of going for. So they tend to want to do that. They fall in love with all the big classics that everybody loves. They want to do that, of course. Secondly, they will sometimes come, say somebody comes and sings Gilda's Cara Nome. Then I will listen to this person, say now at an examination at the university or something, and I'm going, okay, or a student brings it to me, let's put it this way, and I let them sing it, and then I go, okay, did you listen to the opera? Then usually there's an embarrassing silence because I haven't listened to the whole opera. And then I go, well, as Gilda, in the last act, in the storm scene, I said, that's very dramatic. I said, so if you sing Gilda, it's not just this light aria in the beginning. You have to be able to sing the whole role, plus that big dramatic singing over full orchestra.
Yeah.
And that's where you have to cast yourself from. So don't think, I can sing Cara Nome now. Can you sing the rest of it? It's like when people also come and do a Marguerite's aria. And they come with these small little voices and things, and then I go, obviously they haven't heard the big trio at the end. So they have no idea what's waiting for them. So it's a question of sometimes using famous arias, but not in context. Sometimes I will, within the four walls of my studio, I will allow them to sing the aria because they can learn something about it, because the aria in itself is maybe not dramatic. The aria will teach them maybe coloratura or something like that. But if they're going to use that aria or want to use that aria for an audition, I say, no. You have to sing arias at auditions where people can cast you immediately in the role.
Yeah.
That's very hard because it's very hard to find repertoire sometimes. And, but what's the use? Somebody goes to sing a Marguerite with a very small, light voice and they're actually looking for a real Marguerite. And, you go and audition for the role, but you don't know what the whole role really requires. And this is where young people get themselves in trouble. That's been my experience.
Thank you.
Thank you. When did you start to make the transition to the Wagnerian repertoire that you've become so greatly acclaimed for? And how did you know it was right for the voice?
It was a mistake. It was a mistake. People that know me from university days absolutely burst out laughing when they heard this, that I was going to sing Wagner, because I was a love-hater of Wagner. I adore his music, absolutely adore his music, but I loathe the way it was being sung. I was like, these people just stand and bark. They don't sing. There's no legato. I can hardly hear what they sing. It's just a big noise the whole time, and usually wobbly voices. I was like, no ways. Wagner? Forget it. Bring the Italian bel canto. There you have to sing and prove your salt. Well, so how did I land up singing Wagner? As I said, it was a mistake and a joke. I've been told this, so I don't know from first-hand experience that it's true, but I was told this, that somebody heard me, I don't know if it was the Wagners themselves or Christian Thielemann, had heard me on the radio singing a Schubert song recital. And from this recital, they got curious about me and invited me to come and sing an audition for the Magdalena in Meistersinger. I was lying down on the couch one afternoon. I was in Innsbruck, where Brigitte Fassbender, the famous Mezzo-Soprano, who was a great mentor and friend of mine, was the intendant, and I was visiting her. And I had come from somewhere, I was probably singing somewhere, and I'd come in, and I was lying down on the couch. My telephone rang, and I answered this. And the agent was speaking and was saying, yes, Magdalena in Meistersinger for the Wagners. And I said, yeah, okay. I was still half asleep. I was not realizing what was going on.
Dream.
So I walked across the road. And said to Brigitte with great astonishment, I said, Brigitte, I've just had the weirdest phone call. I said, I have gotten a phone call that the Wagners want to hear me in Berlin with Magdalena from Meistersinger. And like with 5 million question marks going, come on, this is a joke. I'm no Wagner singer. And she looked at me and she said, that's your perfect role to start with. Yes, absolutely. Well,
take us backstage at your Bayreuth debut. What did it feel like to sing in that great theater and that repertoire? What was it like?
Okay, let me tell you, making my debut with the role in Mecca for Wagner, I was so innocent. I think I just didn't quite realize where I knew where I was, but in a way I don't think I really understood where I was and how big the significance of actually singing this repertoire there was. I don't think I actually understood it. I was then told they needed somebody that could enunciate extremely well, because Magdalena has a tremendous amount of words to sing, and that this was one of the things that they wanted because of my clear diction, and also so I landed up going to Berlin, and in the house there were like 4 people, and I just walked out there in jeans and a t-shirt. because I was like, oh, come on, this is the joke of the year, meet Wagner. Okay, but I'll go for the fun of it. And I had learned the first scenes of, but I didn't even memorize it. I went out there with such chutzpah, put down my music on a music stand, and said to whoever was in the public, okay, the pianist and me are going to sing 5 people for you now. The pianist would sing in, Stolzing and all the other voices, and I would carry on singing. And then there was silence afterwards. I had finished, and I was like, yeah, okay, fine. So now you've heard I'm not a Wagner singer. It's quite obvious, people. And Christian Thielemann came on stage, and he took me, and he said, please come with me. And I was like, okay. Walked into the auditorium, and there sat Wolfgang Wagner. I got quite a shock when I saw him, because it's almost like you see Wagner himself. He was there, his wife was there, and his daughter Katharina were there. And they were like, thank you very much for the audition. Yeah, yes, very nice. And Mr. Wagner looked at me and he said, well, yes, gell. Sort of do this. When Steve was talking, and he was, gell, ja, sehr gut. Ja. Magdalena muss eine junge Frau sein. He has to be a young person. And I was thinking, just sort of, yeah, okay, yeah, thank you. And then he looked at me and he said, gut, Sie kommen nach Bayreuth und Sie singen es. The only thing that sort of thing I could say, because it was towards the end of the year, was, oh, thank you, what a wonderful Christmas present. I walked out of the opera house in a total daze, walking down the stairs into the U-Bahn. I'll never forget it. I picked up the phone and called Brigitte and said, I'm making my Bayreuth debut. I'm going to Wagner. And that's how it started. And I finished singing and that was Christian Thielemann's debut that year as well. So I was there when the magic happened. I saw what, I saw it happen. And I thought that was it, that was it. And then all of a sudden, it was New Year's Day. I was in Vienna and my phone rang early in the morning, 1st of January. Who the heck is this? Could only be my family. And I'm like, hello? Ja, Michelle, Frau Wagner here. Yes, Frau Wagner. Wish you a happy New Year. Ja, wir wollen, dass Sie Fricka für uns singen in der neuen Ringproduktion. And I'm going, well, I was just totally run over. And there I had to debut the role of Fricka in Bayreuth with Christian Thielemann. And as I say, I don't think I ever actually knew what it was all about. And 14 years later, after singing there for 14 years later, I sang then Venus in Tannhäuser, I sang Brangena in Tristan and Isolde. Over more years, I sang there for 14 years. I think I only realized afterwards what it was made about.
Wow.
What an incredible story. And your legato makes that Wagner so beautiful. So thank you.
Thank you for the compliment. Thank you for the...
And thank you for the question. And thank you for the answer, of course. So you already mentioned a very, very special person in your artistic life, Kammersängerin Brigitte Fassbender, which has been a long-term mentor for you. Our question is, how did you get to meet her in the first place, and how was like working with her?
Well, this is quite a story as well. As I say, sometimes I have to pinch myself because it sounds like a fairy tale. Whilst I was engaged in Braunschweig, the head of the opera had said to me he had a dream that he wanted to send me to work the role of Octavia and just to go and study it with her. And I was like, oh, thank you, that's so kind of you, brilliant, wonderful. And then he suddenly became an intendant in Oldenburg, the city up in the north. And I was like, okay, that's it. And it wasn't when he wasn't there a long time. And then he called me up and he said, look, I want to engage you as Octavian to do your first Octavian. and the director is going to be Brigitte Fassbender. I was like, oh, good heavens. I knew who she was. Absolutely. As a mezzo-soprano, I knew who she was. And I was like, okay. And the day of the first rehearsal, I was so scared to sing those Wie du warst, wie du bist. And in front of the iconic mezzo-soprano for this specific role, Octavian. Mm. And I think I was a mess. I was so nervous, and I was absolutely in my mind that she was going to find me wanting for the role, that I wasn't tall enough, that I was too small, that I wasn't thin enough, that my voice wasn't beautiful enough, that, I mean, I was just about all the negative things like that you can do to yourself. I was, you know, for me that was like, that's it, you know, how is this going to be possible to sing something like this in front of this person? Mm. And she has a very formidable presence. She has an authority that sort of comes out. She has this low, rumbling, speaking voice. And, you know, I was getting all smaller and smaller. But she was very encouraging. Wasn't over enthusiastic or anything. And I went home and I said to my mom, I think she hates me. And my mother just said, well, it was your first day. Give it time. And as time went on, of course, we all found our feet and started enjoying the process and just loving how wonderful of a director she was. And we were just chatting away. And I said to her one day, as we were walking, I said, you know what? I think you're going to be a fantastic intendant one day. Wouldn't you want to be an intendant maybe one day? And she says, well, you know, I'm actually thinking about stopping my singing and doing more directing work. I was like, oh, okay. And just left it at that. I returned to Braunschweig, and the intendant of the theater had left because there was some scandal whilst I was away. He left. So the conductor, the chief conductor, was left in charge of the opera house. He called me in and he said, I have a straight question to ask you. How was it like working with Brigitte Fassbender? And I said, yeah, why? He said, yeah, you know, we're supposed to be doing Idomeneo, and the previous intendant wanted to actually bring her here to do the Idomeneo so that you could sing Idamante. And I was like, yeah, but I don't think the opera is going to work here. I don't think our chorus is good enough. We need double choruses and blah, 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 blah. And I said, well, she's fantastic. I said, just from a direction point of view, she's a singer's dream. I said, but she's not old-fashioned. I said, wow, she has amazing insights and things. And I said, but she was brilliant. I said, I think she has the potential to being a director of a theater, an intendant. And it wasn't long after that, I got a phone call from Brigitte's secretary and said, we need a hotel in Braunschweig. I said, are you coming to Braunschweig? Yes, we're driving through and coming up, and it would be nice to see you. And I'm like, yeah, fine. And they came up to Braunschweig, and he interviewed her, and he said to her, yes, the job. You can be the director of the opera house. And so she came to Braunschweig for 2 years, just after my first 5-year stint there, and I was just on the verge, and she said, Michelle, you've got to leave. You've got to get out here. You've got to fly. You've got to start flying. And I said, yeah, but my passport, and she said, stay with me for 2 years whilst I'm here, the director. You will get good roles to sing, and any guesting work that comes up, I will make possible for you to sing. Oh. I mean, that was a dream. Plus, of course, I could work with her vocally. And so this is how our paths have crossed. And they kept crossing And when she was intendant in Innsbruck, she used to say to me, okay, I'm calling in all my friends. She would call Juliana Banzer. She would call me. She would call some other well-known singers and say, okay, I'm doing this now. I think it's the first time for you to try out your Brangena. So how about trying it out in Innsbruck, a couple of performances? Or would you like to try out your first Eboli? Or, you know, or things like that. Or to Juliana, you want to try out Fiordiligi? And so she had, in the old theatre tradition of where singers used to go to smaller theatres and try out their big roles first before they went to the big major houses, she started up this type of tradition again. So I landed doing quite a bit of work for her there as a friend. But I mean, she used to direct, and it was brilliant. It was brilliant. I enjoyed her productions so much that, you know, sometimes working in very big theaters, I would stand there when I redo some of the repertoire and go, oh gosh, what a terrible production. Yeah, the one I did was just streets better. And we've stayed friends, and we've become very, very good friends. I mean, she's such an amazing person. She's a writer. She wrote her own biography. She's a poet. She can rhyme anything. She's written libretti for musicals. She's a painter, a sculptor. She's an intendant, and she's a singing teacher. I mean, she's just this amazing artistic person that has this amazing energy about her. So I am so fortunate to have really got to know her. And, you know, that she's now not just like a mentor. When I did my Venus, I said to her, I'm doing my Bayreuth debut again with a new role. Would you please come and listen? And, you know, she would come and she would tell me things afterwards. Like, oh, yes, you're so right. Okay, I must remember to do that there. And, you know, it's just been an absolute honor and such a privilege to have her in my life. And now I have the dearest and most precious honor of being a friend of hers.
Oh, wow. That's wonderful. You know what? I feel so proud that I've worked with her, and I've also worked with you together. And I always come to you when I'm in trouble. You know this story. So, Michelle, as you've recorded so many CDs or lead CDs as well, in songs as well. So my question is, do you think this art of lead has been neglected? And would you advise young singers to really study singing lead? Because I mean, I remember in my days when you came to Cape Town to do masterclass, I was one of those who sang a lead, and everybody was singing KG the Maninas and all this. And you kind of like gave me that. Till today, I will never forget. You came and kissed me in my cheek when I sang the Dupistiru. You were like to everybody, this is how it should be. This is what you all should be singing, not all the big areas. It was a shock to me because, you know, I was just this small boy, insecure then, and I was just like, no, and you just lifted me up. And right after you, Renee Fleming came, and really you gave me that courage. Would you suggest to young singers to really pay attention to sing lead? And would you say, is lead helpful and songs all in one helpful to sustain technique for young singers?
I did a lot of recordings, yes, but I only did two solo discs of lead and song. Because there's just not a market for it. This is the tragedy today. There's not a live market for it either. I speak to, you know, Brigitte says to me, she says, oh, it's such a pity. She says, when I was young, she said, I could sing in every little town hall, and there would be an audience, she said. People would come. They would come in the smallest little town. They would know their Winterreise, and they would come and sit and listen. Today, that's, of course, all gone, because I think hugely because of the internet. People sit and surf at home. Nobody wants to go to a song recital. People have become too impatient, too fast to sit and really listen to a Goethe poem and to analyze the poem. You know, it's like if I had to say to people, okay, you're going to go and listen to Shakespeare now. You know, most people say, no, hard work, no. I have to engage my mind. And people, you know, we're so used to just being fed everything. over the internet. You don't have to think anymore for yourself. So going to sit in a song recital asks a tremendous amount of an audience, asks a spiritual and intellectual participation, and people aren't used to and aren't prepared to do this anymore. And this is the great tragedy. So that's where Lead is now. Unfortunately, it's only like really very big names, say like Renee or somebody, or that can Thomas Hampson can sing things like that. It's basically just like the very, very big stars that sort of do recital work. And the others of us that do recital work are just very happy that we are allowed to. Lead is my favorite, of course, I adore opera, but Lead is sort of my passion in a way, because as a singer, it's totally you. There's no conductor to say to you, this is my tempo, you follow me. Even although musically and artistically, you are totally wanting to do something different. You can discuss it with him. But, as the maestri go, they usually want their way, and that's the way it's going to be. There are very few conductors that will actually go along with the singer or listen to what you have to say, really seriously. So you don't have a conductor that's telling you what to do. You can truly live out your musicality and create the music yourself. That's what the conductor does. You're your own director, because you have a story to tell. Usually songs are stories. They are stories. They are just short. They don't have the orchestra and the theater and the acting. They are stories, but have to be told within 2 pages, sometimes just 1 page. So you're your own director. It asks great vulnerability, because through your vulnerability, you have to show your costumes. You have to show who it is you're singing about. People have to be able to sense and feel that. And they can only sense and feel that if you can become very vulnerable yourself. That means that you don't build up a wall, that you really, really, really try and get out of the way. You see, it's very seldom you can do this in the opera. First of all, you're usually quite far away from the audience in opera, because you've got the opera pit, etc. You've got lighting, you've got makeup on, you've got costumes on. To really be vulnerable, you have to fight through all of that stuff first. Then you have to fight through the orchestra being too loud, mostly, and fight a tempo that's maybe not yours. And then you're going to try and still create something that comes from very deep inside. Those moments happen very rarely in opera. Those are the moments that you find speak to you of a very special performance. That's when things like that happen, and you can really be as a singer. Now, you have the opportunity in Lead to do this far more, because you are in control of so many more factors. But that's what makes it hard too, because you have nowhere to hide. You have absolutely nowhere to hide. It's you and your voice. Lead technically is the thing that keeps your voice absolutely on point, because you have to be able to do the largest dynamic ranges possible. You must be able to develop different colors. You must be able to use your imagination as a storyteller. You have to be the biggest storyteller out there in how you say a word. If you shape the vowel this way, if you shape the vowel that way, how you say a consonant. Your consonants are like herbs, like balsamic or salt and pepper. Your herbs are give you flavor, and that's something special in food. The consonants is the way you can use them in Lead, which gets lost sometimes on a big stage. You just are, having to use the biggest form of it, because it has to travel so much further, has to travel over so much more. In Lead, you can literally bring your public and have them sit in your hand.
Yeah.
And this is what is so special and frightening about song.
Yes. Yeah.
But you have to be technically extremely disciplined to be able to sing lead, because you have to be absolutely master of your technique, and then capable of forgetting your technique so that you can tell the story.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Thank you both. We would like to go now to something completely different that concerns the private life of an artist.
No.
As we know, you managed to maintain a family life during all these years traveling and singing worldwide. How important is a happy family life for an artist in order to be even more productive and creative?
I think it's very important. I think it's like, the saying, every strong man has a strong woman behind him somehow.
Yes.
Every strong woman should have a strong man behind her as well. Let's just be fair. It's sort of something like that. We travel, especially if you're going to freelance, you travel a tremendous amount. There were times I would pack 2 suitcases at home. I would literally come home, land, just put the suitcase there, throw everything in the washing machine, take the next suitcase and leave on the next thing. You land up staying in other people's homes for months, sometimes 2 months at a time. You very seldom are at home. So there were times when I came home where I felt like a stranger within my own walls, which was very strange. It was a very strange feeling. When I go, oh, what? I didn't even know I possessed that thing. Oh, wow, got some surprises too, because you just forget. So always being somewhere else can make you have the feeling of, give you an instability. Sorry. You can feel unstable. Oh, I'm thinking German, English. Unstable. So it's of utter importance that you can go back to your roots, to people who know who you are, to people you don't have to pretend anything to people you don't have to act anything for. You might be sitting after a performance with a splitting headache and your fans are coming and you're busy signing things, and everybody's saying, yeah, wonderful, thank you very much. And you're just going, I wish I could just get home. I just want to go home. But you can't. You have to be friendly. You have to be nice. Yeah. So people that stand behind you is that place you can go to where you can let your hair down. And that is so important, because that's what's going to give your batteries a recharge to be able to go out there again and do it all again. Because if you travel around a tremendous amount, you get lonely. I'm not going to say that you don't. There are only so many museums you can look at in a city once you've been through them all. I know. I was in Paris once, and I had been to all the museums already. I was like, okay, so what am I going to do now? Go up and down the Seine? There's only so many books you can read, so many movies you can watch on Netflix after a while, so many walks you can take and everything, and then things start to repeat themselves. And you can sort of lose contact with normal life in a way. You feel very isolated, or I used to feel that way sometimes. And it can get very, very lonely. And then it's very difficult. You can sometimes fall into depressions because your personal demons come to visit you sometimes, and you can really spiral down if you're not careful. So having that connection to people who are totally honest with you and can call you out on things as well, this is very important. That can say to you, oh, come on, you're not the singer now, because people sometimes put singers and artists up on pedestals and things like this. And they get this sort of different view. They don't see you as the person, you the artist and everything. But you need those people that bring you back down to earth and say, hey, you're talking to me now. Own up. Yeah. That stay real. That is so important. So I feel absolutely you need be it your family in general, just a family, big family, the more the merrier. Be it a spouse, if you're lucky. I admire my colleagues who got married in their lives, because I saw so many people get married as artists and then just not make it. They just diverse because of the lifestyle being so difficult, always being in different places, and people just growing apart because they're not sharing and not being there for themselves. I have a student who's married, and she's also all over the place, and he's all over. They both are singers, but I see they're making such a great effort to be with each other, and I find that wonderful, because that's the only way it's going to work, is to make an effort to always see each other, talk to each other, be with each other. My magic was, I have a furry little friend on 4 paws, and this cat just adores flying, adores driving in cars, adores trains, just adores traveling. Most extraordinary. And my agency knew already. They would say, okay, hotel, is Henning coming along as usual? Book a hotel. And I'm like, yes, please book a hotel that's going to, take a cat. That's fine. And he would fly all over with me. He wouldn't fly transatlantic, of course. He would fly all over in Europe and things like that. He would be there, and he loves new places. Other cats, you would find them under the sofa, and then you'd have to coax them. Maybe the day you leave, they'll come out. I'm from under the sofa. He enjoys new apartments. His tail is up, and he's looking at this and looking at that, and sniffing here and looking there. So, and it's wonderful, because when I come back from rehearsals, he comes to greet me at the door. And immediately my attention is away from the rehearsal. If something terrible happened at the rehearsal, immediately I'm being greeted with a little human being on 4 paws that's there, that takes my energy away, my attention away from something that's maybe pulling my energy away from me. Something that, as you say, Sunny Boy, there's not always nice things that happen in theatre sometimes, and this can really weigh you down. And he can't, just there. And this little creature just there saying, total unconditional love. Yeah. And that absolutely helped me a tremendous amount.
What's your cat's name?
Henning von Gnomenwald. And his predecessor was Yeti von Ethiopia. And Yeti turned 19 years old. They both are Devon Rex cats.
Nice.
Very, very special breed. And adorable. Both of them absolutely enjoying traveling and new places, which is very strange, because cats usually don't like to move around. But I've been fortunate to have my furry companions with me. For a private life, it didn't really work out for me to get married. Long relationships went in, broke up because it was, so when you're going to be back again? Yeah. And, it's hard. It's not for everybody. And also children in this job is very, very difficult. If you're going to have children in this job, have them early. Get them done and out of the way. This sounds very weird. Get them done and out of the way, because if your career takes off, you don't have time. You don't have time then. Yeah. Nina Stemmer, the famous Nina Stemmer, and a friend of mine, she also said, I'm so happy I had my kids when I was Festung in Cologne. She said, I had my babies then, got them out of the way. Because now it would have been, later when she started singing huge repertoire all over the world, it would just be so much more cumbersome and difficult. You need tons of money, because you're going to have to be slipping the kids with you wherever they go. If you're going to have homeschooling, you need teachers to go with you. You need private nannies and all sorts of things. It becomes very, very difficult. And, is it just going to be the spouse that stays at home and takes the brunt of things, and you're just going to be the visiting dad or mom? It's very difficult. It's very difficult. So it's not an easy lifestyle. So be conscious of these things. Don't think, being an opera singer, it's fantastic, it's wonderful. Yes, it is. It is wonderful. And I'm so privileged to be able to do this, sing and do this job. But don't forget the realities of life. There's a real world, and you have to live in that real world. Your real world is not the stage. And also think about the end of your career.
Yeah.
Start thinking about the day you're going to stop singing, because nobody knows what can happen. You might be in the middle of your career. There's some famous examples of colleagues that are in the middle and poof, something happens, they ruin their voice, and that's it. Then they fall into a big hole, because what then? They've tied up their whole identity of being who they are with being a singer. So always start looking for a plan B whilst you have your plan A. I know my friend Renee Fleming thinks very similar to this. Always have a plan B. Don't just have your plan A as a singer. I always was so fascinated with teaching since I was a student. My teacher once, when she used to go to Eisteddfods and things like this, she would say to me, "I'm going away for a week. You're going to teach the class this week." So I was thrown in as a student already to teach very early. And I knew that teaching singing was a great passion of mine. So I was very lucky for myself to know I have my plan B is the day when I decide to, if I'm fortunate enough, the day that I decide to stop singing, I can say I'm becoming a teacher. I will go into that full time. That's my passion. But there are so many colleagues who just wrap up their whole identity in I'm the singer. And it's like the real world doesn't exist for them. And they wake up with such a shock when all of a sudden, their career's at an end, especially women. I want to really say that, people don't talk about these things. But, women tend to, just think about it. Women sing, you notice people, and then all of a sudden they disappear. They become invisible. At a certain age, women become invisible because, first of all, we have a different biology than men. Women go through menopause, and that menopause can wreak havoc on some women's voices. Some singers just have to stop. Their career just stops. They just can't do nothing about it. There are other people that sing through it, like Edita Grubarova, who managed to sing till she was 70. That's the exception to the rule. Men have a different thing there. Men can sing far longer. Women can't and don't. As a rule, women don't sing that long. And so I've seen some singers that all of a sudden, they hit with something like this and their career ends. And all of a sudden, it's like, I'm a pensioner and I know what am I going to do? I have to live from my pension. I have to wait. What am I going to do? The day has got so many hours all of a sudden. Who am I? I don't have a public anymore to tell me who I am. There's nobody to tell me that they love me. There's nobody to, and people lose it. People lose it.
Yeah.
So it's very, very important. Please, it's really important. Give yourself another identity.
Yes.
Don't be the singer. Be the person, first of all. You're singing.
Yeah.
And it all sounds very wonderful and intellectual. Oh, I'm this artist, and oh, I'm this. That.
Yeah.
Be yourself. Just be a person.
Yeah.
The artist, it's your job at the end of the day. It's a job. I'm just being very pragmatic. It's a job. You're earning your living with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you very much for this advice. And I believe actually that the pandemic was a perfect opportunity to realize that being only this can be a very difficult situation for us. And it led people like Jason, for example, to start this wonderful podcast series, other people to cultivate another talent they had. So we should always look for alternatives. That is a brilliant advice.
Yes, I can't emphasize this point enough, because I've seen so many colleagues be so disappointed and let down at the end of their lives that their life just stops. Look at somebody like Brigitte. She, as being a world famous singer, she stopped singing when she was 55. Early, and she didn't want to go on. She makes no secret of this. She was having a very difficult menopause, and she stopped singing. But she already was starting to do direction before she stopped. She was doing regie work. She was doing directions of operas. So she knew what her plan B was going to be in any case. Yeah. But so many of her colleagues didn't have that. They sit and do maybe a master class here and there if they're lucky. And some of them think that they can teach, and then they try teaching, and not every famous singer is a good teacher, and not every good singing teacher needs to be a famous singer. So yeah.
Thank you.
On your philosophical bent, what advice, if you can go back in time, what advice would you give yourself now if you can go back to the beginning of your career?
Oh, good heavens, that's a question and a half. Oh dear. To never worry about the future. I used to worry all the time. I had to worry because I left South Africa, I left my home country, I left my family, I left my friends. I came to a country where I couldn't speak the language at all. I looked European, but I have a totally different culture. I had to learn to fit in. And I had this anxiety always of having a job because of my passport and because of needing to have the papers so that I could just stay anywhere.
Yeah.
And that I had this constant fear inside of myself that it was only me looking after myself. I had to take care of myself. Of course, I did have to. That's true. That was an absolute reality. But then I learned you can't control the future.
Yeah.
The future is really something that's going to happen. If I knew then what I know now, first of all, I would not have dreamt that I could have a career that I have had and what I'm doing. I don't think I could envisage it. It's a dream of every singer to be able to sing, but I didn't even know what is a big career or whatever. I was really very, very naive and innocent. But just to know, life goes on. It does and has to. No matter what's going to happen with you, it's going to go on. I'm a person of faith, and I've had to learn in my life. There were stages where it wasn't important to me, or not that important. Let's put it that way. It was always there. I grew up in a religious house. My father was a minister of religion. He's passed on, unfortunately. But I learned that my faith, something very deep inside of me, the core of me, I had to find that. And the day I found that I got a total peace in myself, and I stopped worrying about the future. That was one thing just like that I can say. And another thing I could say is never to give up, no matter what happens. Never give up, because you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. You just don't know.
Oh, wow.
Thank you so much.
Nice way to end this wonderful conversation. No better way.
Oh my God, that's amazing! Really, what a beautiful interview. Really, thank you so much, Michelle. Really, we appreciate everything.
You're most welcome. You're most welcome. Another important thing that I feel that I need to say for young singers, this is going to sound very hard, but you have to give yourself a cutoff date.
Yeah.
If things haven't started happening to you, say, by 30, you have to say, okay, this job is not for me. It's not going to work. Unless you are a huge dramatic voice or you're a tenor. Tenors are very lucky. They're rare creatures.
Yes.
So they never have to worry about work. But if you're sort of like the run-of-the-mill mezzo-soprano like I am, there's huge competition. And if you don't start making it at a certain age, stop. Take a reality check. Don't chase a mirage. Don't chase a mirage, because I've seen people get so unhappy with this as well, and it's hard to be that realistic, and it's hard to be that hard, but I think it's very important.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for sharing your wisdom from your heart. We feel that your experiences, the beautiful cover of your life with us was really precious. And we also wish you from the bottom of our heart to have a continued success in your life and in your career.
Thank you very, very much.
Really spreading your light and your knowledge to whomever listens to you.
Thank you. And it's been a delight speaking to all of you. I wish each and everyone, Maria, Jason, Sunny Boy, I wish each of you also blessings and all of the best for whatever you are doing and planning to do.
Thank you so much. And I hope to see you soon in Hanover with Carmen. We are singing. Sorry.
Try to get there if I can, Sunny Boy.
Yeah.
I definitely will. I definitely will.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Breedt. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Sunny Boy.
Thank
A
you
big
so much.
thanks to our audience for attending once more. And please stay well and creative and healthy until we meet again next week with a special guest. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.